Hey, y'all, and welcome to In Good Company. My name is Alexandria, and I'm your host. Today, I have with me two of my college friends, Tamaya and Chandria. This episode, we will have our social work baddies talking to us a little bit about social work and foster care. Before we get started, can you all tell me what shows you all are watching now? Because y'all are always watching like the best shows.
Oh, yes. Currently, I'm watching Survival of the Thickest.
Okay, yes.
It's on Netflix. It's so good. And then I'm also watching The Five Star Weekend on Peacock.
I heard
Have
that
you
was
seen that?
good.
It's so good.
Yeah, I was actually going to just share that I just recently finished Five Star Weekend. I watched it in one day. It was really good.
We're gonna
Mm.
have to chit chat about that.
I'm a little bit behind on my shows, so I'm going to need to add that to my list. Thank you all for sharing and giving us inspiration on what to watch. Next, can you tell us about who you are and what made you want to become a social worker?
I'm Tamaya, and I always joke and say that I went into social work because I'm nosy. And social work is just a way to be in everybody's business. But I also chose social work because I was always the one who never knew like what I wanted to do. And I know with social work, you can literally do anything. You can travel, you can do medical, you can do therapy, you can have your hands in so many different things. So for me in undergrad, I think it was just an easy way to say, hey, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm going to do this because I can kind of do anything.
Yeah.
I love that.
And for me, I'm Chandria. I am a very compassionate and sensitive person. I love people. So I always knew I wanted to be a social worker. I always knew that I wanted to do something that involved children or helping people.
That's great. You all are both very compassionate people, and I'm glad that we have social workers like you out there. When you hear the word or term social work, or people hear social work, what would you like them to understand about your profession?
Well, I feel like when most people hear social work, they always think of social workers taking people's children. And social work is so much more than taking people's children and child welfare. Like Tamaya said, you can do medical social work, you can work at a hospital, you can do community outreach, school counseling, group homes. Like it's such a broad field that social work it's not just taking people's children. So I just want people to understand that we do a lot in the community.
I agree with Chandria. I was actually going to say the exact same thing that social work isn't just taking people's kids. And another one that I hear so much is, oh, you can help me get food stamps. Social work
Mm,
is not just taking, social work isn't just at a DSS office or a social service or
right.
human service office. It's just so much more than that we do. Like I think a preconceived notion is that social workers are mean, but we only do things because we have to do them.
I do think a lot of times people think that it's just about the resources that you talked about or taking children, and that's like so far opposite than what it is. What surprised you all most your first year of being social workers?
What surprised me the most is how there are going to be times where you have very little control over the outcome of someone's success, whatever challenge they may be going through. Sometimes you can take that home with you. That's why it's very important to
Mm,
have boundaries and just try your best to help someone, but they also have to put in the effort to make those changes in their life as well. Whatever that is that they're going through, that it could be substance abuse or working to get their children back out of foster care or from a family member. It could be literally anything, getting a job, they also have to put in that effort as well. And, sometimes it can be a little heavy when you want more for your client than they want for themselves. That was something that surprised me. It was kind of one of those things where you'll know when you experience it.
and that's hard because when you're a compassionate person and you want better for others, you're like, make it happen.
I think for me, what surprised me, I want to say maybe my first year, but also more specifically my first year working in foster care, um, how many hats we have to wear. We're all these things. We're
Yeah.
advocates. We're transporters. We're picking them up. We are like so in tune. We have to go to court. We have to do all these things. Yet people do not listen to what we say. If we feel like it's in the best interest for our client, because we spend so much time with them and because we wear all of the hats. Yet sometimes I feel like people think that they know better than we do.
Mm,
We're the experts at what we do and our
right.
clients. And so I think that just surprised me because I'm like, is and then to be very transparent, is this my job or yours?
Yeah. And the workload as well, it can be
Yes.
really heavy. Sometimes you can feel like you're not supported. Like Tamaya said, we wear many hats. So it's very
Yeah.
easy to get burned out really
Hmm.
quickly in social work. So you have to have those boundaries for yourself or, just knowing I can't take this home with me. After 5 o'clock, I'm leaving work at work.
That's great. Those boundaries are so important. And I think something that you said to Maya leads us into our next question. You talked about people not understanding that you all are skilled in this. You know what you're doing, right? Can you all talk to me about your journey from Winston-Salem State to where you are now?
After I finished undergrad, I stayed in Winston for a little while longer. I was working at a daycare and I was like, I want more for myself. I always knew like it's so much more. I knew I wanted to work with children. I just didn't know what I wanted to do with
Mm-hmm.
children. So I moved to Raleigh and I went to grad school and got my master's in social work at North Carolina Central University. I graduated last year in 2025. So after I finished grad school, I was already working in foster care as a case manager. I was in the field of social work, but I was doing casework as a social worker.
Can you talk about like what it means to be doing casework?
So what that looks like is I managed a caseload of 15 clients at the agency. And whenever those clients, if they disrupt their placement, I will have to find a new foster home for them, just coordinate with their social worker to schedule CFT meetings once a month, do home visits with the foster parent once a month, and weekly contacts. So, the difference between a case manager and a social worker is a social worker that's working in foster care, what they're doing is they're the legal guardian of that child. So that means that they make the decisions about their school when they get to visit their parents, and they're the ones that's basically trying to work with the parent to get the child back in the home with the parent. So they seek out resources at different foster care agencies and whoever has availability, for their client. But in my role as a case manager, I was just titled a case manager. I wasn't the actual social worker. So there is a difference. I did case management there for about a year and a half, and then I got a job in my field finally as a outpatient therapist for a small agency. So I was providing therapeutic services with youth and adolescents, which I really enjoy. But community outreach is a lot
Hmm.
because you're traveling to these people's homes or you're meeting with them virtually, and that you can become burned out doing that quickly. So shortly, probably after 6 months, I realized I was like, I don't think I can do this full time. It was a very hard decision for me because I like to usually stick at jobs for at least 2 years, but I just wasn't happy. And so I started applying to other jobs. And now currently I am working at a psychiatric hospital and I'm an inpatient therapist. I still have my part-time job, so I'm still providing therapeutic services, but I'm only doing it virtually with a very small caseload. That's where I am currently. I'm balancing two jobs, all of this within a year.
It's great seeing that journey from where you came from to doing that. What about you, Tamaya?
love that, Chandria. My undergrad degree is actually in sociology. Was in the social work program at Winston State. Very rigorous. And I think I should add this just for transparency and it may help someone else. I did not finish out the social work program at Winston State because I wanted to graduate on time. And because I made a C in a class that was going to be impossible for me to do. So I changed my major to sociology and got my undergrad in sociology, but I was able to still go back and get my master's in social work. So, like, for anybody who maybe didn't get their undergraduate degree in social work, you can still go back and get your master's if you have like psychology, sociology, any like human service or interdisciplinary studies type of undergraduate degree. But then I went to get my master's at Johnson C. Smith, which was great. Johnson C. Smith, another HBCU, all of my professors looked like me. Very, very successful, very knowledgeable people. Oh my God, some of the smartest people I've ever met. So it's just really good. And then after that, I interned. Well, I was interning my last year in my graduate program at Charlotte Housing Authority. It's now called in Libyan. So they hired me on. I was working there for a little bit. I did not enjoy it at all. So then I went to work in kinship and eligibility. I also did not like that. And I literally just struggled finding, I felt like I wasn't good at any of it. I also learned through that I am a person who needs structure. Like this needs to be due by this time. You have to go on this date to court. Like I need it to be structured for me, laid out, flat and plain for me to be successful. So both of those jobs were very lenient with how you had to do your schedule and things like that. Then I segued into foster care. And I was a foster care social worker for about 3.5 years. Recently, within the last month, I started medical social work at the hospital doing clinical case management, which is very different than foster care. And then also in between that, I was doing therapy on the side. More recently, doing therapy for juveniles in a group home. But I stepped down just because it was a little bit too much doing foster care and that at the same time. So now I'm just doing clinical case management at the hospital.
That's great. And I think what's amazing about both your stories, one, that you both are double HBCU grads, which is amazing, but also that the journey can look different. You can still get to the same destination. So, Tamaya, thank you so much for showing that in your story. For both of you, what was that moment that you realized, like, oh, I'm kind of good at this?
For me, the very first moment where I was like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. Foster care, I had a case. The mom on that case was really struggling. And I was very hard on her just because, one, I'm just a very blunt person in general. So I can't really sugarcoat and be sweet when there's serious things going on. And I had to tell her, like, girl, let's get in the matter of words. Let's get it together. Like you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You're telling me that you want this, but you're not doing the things to get your child back. One day after one of her visits, my supervisor and my coordinator were walking by and I was walking them down. And she basically told them, Maya is like such a great social worker. I love her. She is so good. Y'all better not ever fire her. Y'all better keep her. All these things. Mind you, I didn't think we had good rapport because I'm always down her throat. Fast forward to about a year later, she did like a whole turnaround and she got her son back. And that was my first reunification and I'm still keep in touch with them. So it was just a beautiful thing to see. And I was like, you know what? I might be good at this. I might be making a difference.
For me, I realized I was good at it when my clients would actually be vulnerable with me and they would talk to me about what's going on through their heads. And one of my client who was experiencing suicidal ideation, she actually came to me and told me why she was feeling this way and what she was going to do about it. She said what stopped her was she thought about how it would affect her family and others that care about her, like her friends. And her coming to me and talking to me about it, it just really made me feel like I provided that safe space for her to actually open up and say that you're feeling that way, because sometimes people don't really children, especially, they may not verbalize those thoughts. Um, I ended up having a conversation with her mom because she was telling me a lot of her triggers were her family members.
Mm.
And so it was a very uncomfortable conversation to have with a parent, especially when, personally, I don't have children of my own.
Mm.
But just letting her know that some of her actions and some of their family members' behaviors are really starting to affect her mentally, physically, and emotionally. My client, she has came to me and told me that her family would get mad at her when she is experiencing those thoughts. And that's not how
Oh
you
wow.
respond. I
Mm.
understand that you may be upset about the emotions of them wanting to harm themselves, but being mad at them for wanting to do that is very selfish. So I guess I understand suicide ideation a lot more than I did before I actually got into the field. I just empathize with those who are feeling those thoughts, and then they actually tell people and they come up with coping skills to help them
Mm.
avoid feeling those thoughts, and they're trying, but other people, they may not understand it. They may feel like, oh, that's selfish. But I think that that's so resilient for someone to be going through
Mhm.
so many deep emotions, but they're still
Mhm.
going, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, wow, I actually do think I have the heart to be in this field. And maybe I am really good at working with children.
Love that. I love
I
that.
love
And I
that.
think both of your stories have a lot of parallels. And one of them is you both worked at foster care agencies. So, what does working with foster care families actually look like day to day?
Oh my God, such a loaded question.
It's so much to say about foster care. So, foster care, it can look different for a lot of different families. One, many people go into foster care for a different reason. Some people, they go into foster care because they genuinely want to adopt children who don't have families. Some people do it because they would like to help someone out temporarily, for kids who are planning to go back home to their families. Some people do it short term. Some people wants to do it long term. Then you have those people who aren't really doing it for the right reasons.
Hmm.
So it can look very different for a lot of people depending on their goal and what they are hoping to achieve out of foster care.
From a worker's standpoint,
Yes.
it looks like being everything for multiple kids at one time.
Mm.
Whether you have infants until adolescent, whether you have adolescents on through 18 to 21. It looks like doing visits weekly or bi-weekly or monthly or bi-monthly. It looks like going to court to advocate for your kids and what is best for them. But it also looks you're not just the worker for the child. You're the worker for the foster family. You're the worker for
Mhm.
the biological parents, and literally just having to be the change agent, advocating for all of them, literally having to leave your biases out of it, which I think was one of the hardest things for me. It is so much at one time. It really will work you. I feel since working in foster care, I could go do anything. It just looks like setting up child and family treatment meetings, going to pregnancy planning reviews, making sure nothing falls through the cracks for these kids because you are the legal guardian. So if that child has a doctor's appointment and that foster parent doesn't want to take them, or they have a procedure at 6 a.m. and that foster parent doesn't want to take them, I have to do it
Mm.
because I am the legal guardian for these kids. IEP meeting or 504 meeting at that school, I have to be there. I have to sign the consents for kids to have, all these things, but, still giving the parents their rights as long as those rights haven't been terminated because they still are their parents. So making sure they still have that choice and making sure they're still informed on things that are going on with their kids, being sure not to make them feel like they're left out. And that's another thing. Having to go to court when a parent's rights is about to be terminated has to be one of the most
That's heavy.
It's very heavy. Like I don't even think I have a word to describe it, because on one end you're doing this because it may be what's best for the child. But then this is a pivotal moment in that parent's life as well. It also affects those foster parents too, especially if they want to adopt. So taking
Yeah,
everybody's emotions into account, and then because I had infants to adolescents, explaining what that looks like to them, because they are going through this too.
right.
So what does that look like for me? Am I not going to be able to see my parents anymore? So
Yeah.
foster care, it's a lot of layers.
And from a caseworker's perspective, when I was working in foster care, I was basically supervising the foster parents and making sure that they are taking those children to their doctor's appointments and making sure that IEP, if it's needed, advocating for that child and strongly communicating with the social worker, because it's a lot of coordinating with the social worker because they're the legal guardian. If the foster parent come to me and they notice that the child is struggling in school, the case manager is also an advocate for that child
Mhm.
and communicating with the social worker to make sure that we are advocating for this child to get extra help at school. If you see something that's not right, that a foster parent isn't doing, then possibly having to remove that child and find another
Yeah.
foster for that child.
Mhm.
So a lot of times the social worker, they may notice something or they may not like something, and they'll go to the case worker and say, hey, what can you do? How soon could you have a bed available for this child? So it can also be challenging when you don't have any homes available for children.
Yeah.
Mm.
When you don't have any space available, then that leaves the social worker responsible and having to spend a night at DSS. I've heard so many different stories about that.
There's such a need for homes. There's such a need for therapeutic homes. And there's such a need for adolescent and teens, like older than age 5 and 6. It's easier to place infants, toddlers, and even younger kids, but adolescents and teens, it's really hard, especially if they have behaviors.
That is super helpful. And I think a lot of the things that people don't know when they see you all doing all the work and you're having to balance different parties and different interests. So kudos to you all for doing that work. What do you think some misconceptions that people have about the foster care system?
They just want to take people kids. That we are doing something wrong to the parents as opposed to thinking about what we're doing good for the kid.
It takes a lot for social workers to get involved and remove a child from their home. So if a child is removed, it is for a very serious reason.
I also want to note that yes, it takes a lot for a child to come into foster care. And there are things put in place before it even gets to that point.
Right. Mm-hmm.
When it gets to foster care, it is because that was the last resort. There
Mm.
are in home services, there are case plans set up with CPS or an in home worker where they'll try to come up with a plan with the family before the kids are even removed and put in foster care.
And one thing I really wish could be changed about foster care is for those struggling families who are genuinely good parents. They may just is having a hard time with stability, with housing and
Mm-hmm.
transportation, those barriers stopping them from being able to work. I do wish that as social workers, we could use that money to help families get on their feet. Yes, we can
Mm-hmm.
provide them resources such as, food stamps, Section 8. But as far as being able to help someone sustain a household and get to work and overcome those barriers, I wish that we could do a lot more in that area with the families. That's
Hmm.
one thing that I will say. Because I've heard people say, oh, y'all pay foster parents to take care of the children, but why not pay the parent?
And I think from me working in education, it's usually those basic needs and the lack of those being met that creates that strain in that household. So I can imagine a lot of times it's not just that the
Absolutely.
parent doesn't want to be a good parent, it's that it's hard out here. I want to go into the other side and someone wanting to become a foster parent. So, as you all both know, I've been going through the process and doing my application to potentially be a foster parent. What is some advice that you would give somebody before entering that journey?
I would say do your research, and research what age group you're interested in. I would also say to talk to other people who have fostered. Also, do you want to go private agency? Do you want to go county? Things like
Mm-hmm.
that. All in all, my biggest thing is doing your research and then having a support group would probably
Yeah.
be really good. And even having supports like outside of a support group, like family members, close friends, things like that, who may be willing to provide respite for you if you do get into fostering and things like that. And just really thinking about the pros and cons before getting into it. Not saying you even have to do it long term too, because you also could be a foster parent who offers emergency beds. Just looking at all of the options before getting into it.
Yes, it's very important to have a goal of what you want to gain from becoming a foster parent and sticking to that goal. Like she said, knowing what age group you want to work with and also having your boundaries, because sometimes foster care agencies, they get desperate and they just want to place the child.
Say so. Yeah.
Yes.
Knowing, do you want to do it long term or short term? Because if you are doing it short term, there's a possibility you're going to have to communicate with the parents, the biological parents
Yeah.
of these children. Definitely think about what you hope to gain, because it's not easy being a foster parent and you're definitely going to need those supports in place. I can say that it would be great to have you as a foster parent. I know you would
That's
be
so kind.
amazing.
Absolutely.
As a social worker, we would love
We would
you.
love,
Thank
yes.
you all. What would you all say someone should do to prepare themselves emotionally to be a foster parent?
Um, do not go into being a foster parent thinking you're going to leave with the baby.
Mm-hmm.
As cut and dry
Yeah.
as that sound,
Yeah.
if you're
Yeah.
wanting infants, if you're wanting toddlers, or even if you're wanting older kids, because you know that to say don't get attached to these kids. We're human. We are put
Yeah.
here to love. We are put here to nurture. You're going to grow attached to someone or something that you are around and taking care of. But with foster care, you have to realize that there's always the potential that these parents may get their kids back.
Right. Right.
So going into it without intentions, literally doing it because your heart is in it or doing it for a bigger reason than
Yeah.
yourself
The right
is
reasons.
important. Right reasons, yeah.
Yeah, and also don't take it personal if a placement doesn't work out. You can give a child the world. It doesn't matter if you give them all the love, a big fancy house. Deep down, sometimes they're still going to want that connection with their biological parent. And sometimes that may be a trigger for them. And they
Yeah.
may say, I don't want to be here because you love me too much, because of
Hmm.
the love
Mm-hmm.
you give. I have
Hmm.
seen that, I have seen a
That's tough.
foster child really break a foster parent's heart because this foster parent wanted to be a mother figure to this child, but she didn't want that. Definitely have your support group, maybe even have you a therapist, to talk
Absolutely.
to when those challenges happen. Sometimes children disrupt their placements, and
Mm-hmm.
you can try your best with the child and give them chances after chances after
Yeah.
chances. If it doesn't work out and if they are doing something to jeopardize your home or your well-being or the safety of someone else's children in the home, sometimes you have to let that child go. I know that sounds really, really hard, but
Yeah.
there are some really, really good women and dads who are really in foster care for a good reason. And sometimes it's not them, it's the child that
Yeah.
just don't want to be there.
That was really good advice because I could imagine it can be hard emotionally going through the process. What does success look like as a foster parent? Not in getting to adoption, right? But in caring for that child.
I think success would look like the child being genuinely cared for temporarily in this home, and they are getting they're doing their therapy consistently. They're having their home visits with their social worker, their case managers. They're having their visits with their parents. And their case is actually making progress, and there is a goal for them to go home. When you meet that goal and you actually see that child get to go back home because that parent did exactly everything they were supposed to do to get their child back home, I think that is success. Reunification is success of foster care.
Absolutely. I'm going to add, yes, reunification, shared parenting between foster parent and biological parent. I know a lot of time foster parents are a little uncomfortable with it when really it's actually a requirement. It's
Mm-hmm.
technically a requirement. So I think that when at the point that a child is reunified with their biological parent, that foster parent still being a support for that parent, because I've
Mm,
also seen that happen, and that's so good. And I'm actually going to play devil's advocate and say that I think success also for foster parents does look like this, that particular case, moving to adoption and being able to adopt that child if it makes sense and if it is in the best interest of the child. I've had two full adoptions happen, and it was for the best. In one case, the mother was like, I do want this foster family to adopt my baby. I am
mm,
unable to provide for my baby. I know that my baby will have a wonderful life with this family if they could still just send me pictures of her every now and then, and still give me updates. I want nothing more but for my baby to be raised by this family. And maybe 6 to 7 months up to a year later, I was at the adoption party, and it was the most
I love
like
that.
full circle moment ever. So reunification is always the goal, and I do think that a healthy, stable child who are getting all of their needs and in all of their services, with no disruptions too, does look like, or even a foster parent being able to work through those disruptions. I do think that looks like success for a foster family or parent, but also adoption looks like success too if that is what is best for the child as well.
So, what I'm hearing is success is on a case by case basis, and the goal depends on the situation, which totally makes sense. So, next, I want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges within the system. What are parts of the system that feel most under resourced?
That's also a very loaded question, Alexandria.
Give me like your top three.
One, we spoke about it earlier. There is a lack of homes for children,
Yeah.
specifically children with behaviors,
Mm,
children with diagnoses, children with autism, children
yeah.
with IDD, those things. I think there's a lack. Also, there's a lack of resources for biological parents who are struggling to sustain. Yes, some parents are able to get food stamps and things like that. But there's a limit because LEAP, which helps like with utilities and stuff like that. I had a parent on my caseload. She did work, yes, but she did not make enough to cover like her rent, and she had to get her car fixed and like things like that. There
Yeah.
aren't things for that. And even though she was working, she still made too much to get assistance with LEAP for her utility bill.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like, I think there's a lack in resources, like, in that sense, too. I think those are my two. I do think in some cases, and this is a county by county thing, I think there is a lack of support for the social workers.
I will say those resources, like Tamaya said, those barriers with, being able to pay your utility and housing resources. I feel like we need more foster parents, more young and vibrant foster parents, because the agency that I worked at, there were a lot of older foster
Mm,
parents, people who are able to move around and transport these children to after school events or activities that they would like to do on a weekend. I think that, like Tamaya said, a lack of support for the social workers. Sometimes it feels like there's a shortage on social workers too. Sometimes social workers have a caseload of God knows how many kids on their caseload. Tamaya can attest to that. I have seen where it has been hard to coordinate with the social workers as a case manager, hard to get in contact with the social worker because the social worker may have changed or them being out of town, and just depending on the agency, I think that there is a lack of support for social workers. And
Absolutely.
and that matters, because we want every case to be handled with care and resources. We want to be able to help everybody. We don't want anyone to fall through the cracks.
Right.
But sometimes things do fall through the cracks when we don't have that support.
That makes sense. I think anything involving children and families, you need all hands on deck, and we don't need anybody getting burnt out where they can't care for the kids and like all the things. So I definitely hear you on that. What is one thing that you truly appreciate about the system as is?
I think I would keep foster care for children. It would be a little bit more structured. I think it would be harder for people to become a foster parent. We would have those more thorough background checks. Of course, we do background checks, but sometimes I have seen things come up later down the line. I talk so much about what is your goal of wanting to become a foster parent? Because I really, really think that we need more genuine foster parents, more people who are in it for the right reasons. And I don't think I would allow it to be like a long-term thing. No child should be in foster care for 18 years of their life or for longer than 2 years, honestly. If their plan doesn't work out, even though the goal is for the plan to work out within a year, if it doesn't work out in a year, okay, maybe we need to continue it for another year. But after a certain period of time, if it's not working out, what are we going to do? Are we going to work towards getting this child adopted? Stability. I think every child deserves some stability. No child should be having 50 foster care homes on their track record.
Yeah, yeah.
There will be a limit to foster care for me and how long a child can stay in foster care.
I love that, Chandra, because when I think about on the education side and children trying to learn, when they're moved around from home to home and they have just no stability in their lives, it really impacts every other area of their life and makes it so
Yeah.
hard for them. So I completely agree. If I had power to give you to make that happen or the funds, I'd make that happen for you.
If there's one thing that I would change, I would go internal. A lot of things from a worker's point of view, as again, the legal guardian for this child, I think seeing kids in custody for 3, 4, 5, and 6 years is so disheartening because it is unfair to them. It keeps them in limbo. It is the driver for a lot of their behaviors and a lot of their trauma. And I think, again, I'm going to play bad guy. I think when it hits that year mark, I've had it hit that year mark and parents are doing nothing. They are not
Hmm.
showing up or they are missing things. They're not working their case plan. I know there's a lot of judges that are very lenient, or give chance after chance. And I think chances are okay because people change and do get on the straight and narrow.
Hmm.
But it's like, at what point do we say enough is enough? This child deserves stability, especially when the child is in a home who wants to adopt. Maybe the parent has been out of the picture for a while, or they're really just not working their case plan. I was a worker who's been in court, and like I would advocate so hard for the child on my caseload, and I've seen a parent get their visits increased. They haven't did anything. I think it's so frustrating.
Mm.
Or I've seen um a parent get, not like, and not like I think they should get chastised or anything like that, but I do think to move it along quicker because there's so many kids in foster care, it's oversaturated. These kids deserve stability.
We're going to play a little game of
Okay.
myth versus reality. And I'll say some statements and you'll tell me if that's a myth or what the reality is. Foster care is always about adoption.
That is false.
Okay.
It's not always about adoption. The goal for foster care is reunification. However, in certain circumstances, if a parent's rights have been terminated, then sometimes that case plan can change and adoption does come up. Or if a case is continuing to go on for years and years, then the social worker may say, okay, we need to look for a permanent placement for this child, and that could be kinship or adoption.
Thank you. Most foster parents are older married couples.
That is a myth. I've had foster parents that are younger than me and
Hmm.
married. I have had foster parents that are single men. I've had foster parents that are single women, married couples, younger or older. I've seen it all.
Kids in foster care don't want to bond with caregivers.
That is actually a really good one because that can be a myth. They want to be somewhere that they're cared for.
Right.
Nobody wants to be treated badly. But then you also have those special cases where a child may be going through a lot of trauma and a lot of anger, and it may be hard for them to connect with
Right.
the foster parent.
You need to be wealthy to foster.
That's false.
If that was the case, I would not qualify.
I was going to say,
Not quite yet. No, go ahead, Chandria.
I do want to add something though. No, you do not need to be wealthy to foster, but you should be able to provide some type of stability for the child and not expect the social worker to do everything. Cause,
absolutely.
when school time come around, the social workers, they do look out, they get them book bags and some school supplies. Sometimes you may have to come out your pocket
Yeah.
for some
Mhm.
things for that child.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point, and just like managing those expectations. You may get some resources, but be prepared to take care of the child that's in your home. So now we're going to go out more broad and just some personal reflections about your careers. What is something that this work has changed about how you see family?
Well, my profession now as a inpatient therapist, working at a psychiatric hospital has truly humbled me in the best ways because people come into our hospital who have substance abuse issues or mental health issues. It just humbles me because it could be anybody, it could be
Mm-hmm.
your family member. People coming in here is because they have endured some type of trauma or they're experiencing some hardships in their life that may have caused them to drink. Family is so important. Having that support in your life. Sometimes when people who are coming into the facility because they're having suicidal ideation or a suicide attempt, they may feel like they don't have anybody that care about them. They may live alone or, something. They're just really having a hard time and they don't have that support. I think that family is so important and it's not always by blood.
Yeah.
Sometimes you meet those connections out in the community or when you're trying to overcome whatever challenge it is, like AA or group therapy. Group therapy is such a great place to meet people. But family doesn't always have to be blood. Sometimes you have to create your family and create that village for yourself. So I think my perspective on that has changed. Just seeing people who don't have family, so they have to create that for themselves.
I think it has made me, outside of foster care in general, even
Mm-hmm.
with doing medical social work now, it has made me reflect on my life at 30 and say, like, I want to be married because even doing medical social work, there's so many people in there alone. And yes,
Mm-hmm.
I have my parents, I have friends, but as we get older, my friends are going to get married. My friend, some of them already are, or they're going to have their own lives with their kids. My parents, Lord, I want them to stay here forever, but Lord forbid, who will be there by my bedside
Yeah.
if I'm going through something? And then on the other end is how much a family impacts your life, whether it
Mhm.
is
Mm-hmm.
the lack thereof or the
Right.
presence of them, whether it's the absence of a mother, the absence of a father, the absence of both, whether it's siblings, what is the relationship between those siblings, like what does it look like? All of those things affect our ecosystem and
Yeah.
who we are and how we grow up and how we think and how we navigate life and how we navigate relationships outside of family, like arguments, all of those things. And obviously, we grow up like, oh yeah, well, I was raised like this, and oh, I had a
Yeah.
two-parent household like that. But we never understand even how communication with family affects us.
Mhm.
Literally every minute thing matters when it comes to
Right.
family.
Those were both really good points. So after everything that you've seen in your career so far, what are the things that give you hope?
My reunifications give me hope. People need people. And And being a social worker, being that person that someone needs, gives me hope. If you can be that agent of change, that just makes me so happy, like helping people and being there for people and actually seeing them overcome these hurdles. As a social worker, you see people at the darkest times of their life. These people are here and you're there to change their lives. It just gives me hope because people still want to do well. People, as long as
Yeah.
they're showing up for that visit, that means they have hope and that means that they want to do better.
What gives me hope is when you see people who actually do want to make those changes. They actually do want to overcome their addictions. Sometimes people just need someone to fight for them. They just need to
Hmm.
know it's somebody out here that care. And
Hmm.
so with my job that I'm at now, it's so fast paced. Like you're just moving, moving, moving. But I try to be very intentional and take my time and like really check in with my people every day and say, "Hey, are you," even if it's just as simple as, "Are you okay?" You know, sometimes they just need someone to do that referral for them so they can get in
Hmm.
this program, or, you know, talk to that lawyer and let that lawyer know that they're here, they're admitted
Yeah.
until such and such day. Anything that'll help them overcome those barriers and challenges that they may be going through. And it just makes me feel like I'm actually doing something to make a change in their life, because people will really remember
Yeah.
who helped who helped them.
Yeah, I think that's great. My mom always says that people will remember the way you make them feel. So you all are doing
Absolutely.
such
Hmm.
amazing work to make people feel good and making their lives better. So I have two final questions for you all. The first is, what self-care advice would you give those that have highly emotional and high stress jobs?
Use that PTO. I am going to just say take time off. So now that I'm
Hmm.
at a new job, I just reflected on my last year and I really haven't took a moment to just stop and breathe. I've
Yeah.
just been going from one journey to the next. So recently, I have been taking a day off every month. So definitely try to schedule your time off.
Mm.
Use that PTO, take those days.
Before we hopped on, Chandra and I were talking about sometimes just take a day and you don't even have to have plans. Just relax and enjoy the
Just
time doing
relax.
nothing. What about
Yes.
you, Tamaya? What advice would you give?
Use that PTO and don't feel guilty about doing it. That's what your supervisor is for, and that is what your team is for. While you're
Yeah.
gone, everything will be okay. You know what I'm saying? Like you
It
don't,
it
and
has
while you
to
are,
be.
it
It
has
has
to
to be.
be. I, hey, also buy you something nice. You work hard, buy you something, spend that money, and also whatever self care looks like to you, do it. Personally, I love to go out and have me a little hookah. I'm gonna go do it. If it's Wednesday when I get off work and I'm in that mode, I'm going to do it. If I want to go get my nails done, get a massage, do all the things because you'll
Yeah.
get so caught up in working that you don't do the things. That's my piece. Hang out with the people you love. Be around love. Like be
Yeah.
around love. Be around so much love. The people that bring the best out of you. Be around that. Plan those things with the people that you love, whether it's your family, your friends. Like be around the people you love. This line of work will take so much out of you that you need to be poured
Hmm.
back into. And who better to
Ex-
pour back into you than the people that you love?
I
yes, I am
love that.
so glad you touched on that, Tamaya. That is so true.
Yeah.
And it also leads me into my next question. So, this is In Good Company, the podcast. You both have been such great company for me and all the time that we have been friends. And it's so funny, like, I met you both in college, but our friendship really blossomed in adulthood and post college. And just really grateful that that seed that was planted in college could just sprout this beautiful fruit of a friendship. Who has been good company for you throughout your career in this social work journey?
My people, my friends, all of my friends, including you, Alex. I never imagined that our friendship would be what it is, but I'm so grateful
Yeah.
for it. If I don't tell you enough, and my dad, who praised me through it all. He
Yeah.
gets me through it. My friends and my family, and that is such a large group of people. But I have a really great village. Oh, and my dog, because when I've had a long day, I go
Phoenix.
home and cuddle up with Phoenix, and it's all right.
For me, it's definitely been my family, my grandmother. She's so supportive. But I really want to say, like, my social work community, having those people who are also in the field to vent to because they actually understand what you're going through.
Yeah.
It is great to have that. I still do have a few connections of people from grad school. When I was going through my journey of wanting to get out of community mental health, my colleague Sharmanique, she was very supportive because she was going through the same thing. So it's nice to have other social workers around you who can relate to what you're going through.
So, thank you all so much for spending this time with us and talking to us a little bit more about social work, the foster care system. I feel like I have learned so much for this conversation. Thank you all for listening and being in good company with us. Until next time, thank you.